Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you happen to be. This is day 2 of our Public and International Service Advisor Training Workshop, and I am so glad to see all of you here. My name is Carmen Mazzara. I serve as Executive Director of APSIA, the Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs. For those of you who were able to join us yesterday for a great conversation about some of the many different career possibilities in international affairs, welcome back. And for everybody who's new, you have picked a great conversation to kick off your training with us. This is an opportunity to explore different graduate degree programs and that key piece about mapping financial aid. We have some wonderful colleagues who are here to share their wisdom with us. Hopefully you've had a chance to see the program and get to know a little bit about them. In the program, you will also find some information on our session tomorrow that looks at empowering students to tell their story in applications. And then be sure to join us on Friday when my colleagues and I will unpack for you a little bit more about what APSIA is as the community of grad schools worldwide, as well as how we can be of service to you as advisors and hopefully make your lives a little easier. I want to also say happy International Women's Day to everybody out there who might be celebrating, and happy Holi. And if you're doing both of those, it's going to be a very colorful, festive sort of day. And with that, I will turn the floor over to APSIA alumna and great partner, Sharon Swab. Sharon, please.
Thanks so much, Carmen. I'm delighted to be here. As Carmen mentioned, my name is Sharon Swab, and I currently serve in a leadership role with the Robertson Foundation for Government, where I work with graduate students from different APSIA schools on their professional development planning and also and providing fellowships through our foundation to support their graduate study. So I'm very excited to have this discussion. As someone who did a graduate degree in international affairs, I know it was a very tough decision in terms of what graduate degree to pursue when that choice was being made. And so I'm really excited to moderate and to lead this discussion with Marina Bruce and David Sheridan, who can speak more about how can we best assist students when it comes to picking their graduate degree and then also for financing it. So a couple of housekeeping items. Please, if you are comfortable, we encourage you to turn on your camera and include your mics on mute. And then also, do not feel like if you have a burning question that you have to just hold it in. You can just drop it in the chat. I feel like this is a pretty casual conversation, casual group. So if that question it cannot wait and you must have it answered in that moment, please feel free to raise your hand and we can call on you and get that question answered. So with that, I'm just going to kick things off with Marina and David. So Marina Bruce is the Assistant Director of Admissions and Operations at my alma mater, UC San Diego. And we also have David Sheridan here, who's the Director of Financial Aid at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. Their full bios, just a reminder, should be in the materials that APSIA sent you. So I want to kick things off with kind of just an introductory question. When it comes to graduate degrees in public policy, public administration, international affairs, I would say a lot of students and also probably a lot of advisors are like, what really distinguishes these fields? So Marina and David, what would your recommendations be if these advisors were speaking to their students and they were like, I want something in this general field, but how do I know if I should go public policy, public administration, or international affairs?
I'm going to let Marina start that off. I don't really work on the admissions side of the house.
That's totally fair.
I feel like one of the first things you might want, or the person who's thinking about considering, who's thinking about grad school, would be like, what is it you hope to do on the opposite side? What are your career aspirations? What motivates you to attend graduate school now at this point? How much professional experience have you gained at this point? What kind of skill sets do you have? And those types of, real practical questions. Why is now the right time for me to be here? What skills do I have? What do I want to gain in terms of my skill set during this time? And what do I hope to do on the other side? So I think some of those questions, or after they find those answers, it kind of drives you towards a particular one program versus another. Oh, actually, what kind of specialization do I want to focus in on, if any? So again, all those kinds of components, all those types of things, questions that you ask yourself kind of drive you to a particular program or a type of one program or over another.
And in your experience, Marina, could you give us an example? Obviously, we know that like there's multifaceted options in terms of specializations, career goals for any of these degree programs, but can you just give us a couple of examples for the advisors of like an example of someone who might be more strongly suited for public administration versus public policy versus international affairs?
Gosh, like I said, it really depends on who they are and what their career goals are. So if they're looking at incorporating or having that big overall look, you know, like that global sort of perspective, then perhaps a degree in international affairs might be a better degree for them to pursue in terms of like feeding all the parts of their brain that want to learn what they can about the world at large, or specifically a region within the world, and the skills that go along with that. Also, if a person's looking more inward or towards, you know, having a career within the public sector and on a local level, or work for their government here in the United States, then perhaps a degree in public administration or public policy would be a better way for them to go, giving the skills they need to kind of pursue those types of that type of career path. Is that too general? Is that too broad? Would you like more specific?
I think that's helpful. I think that's really helpful. Just wanted to get, in case some of the folks in the audience didn't have a strong concept of like potential backgrounds for people going to these degree programs. Yeah.
I would also throw in, you know, that most schools with programs like this are going to have a, you know, career services office, and their website could be a good resource for what types of careers their alum have gone into with various degrees that they offer. So they might have information about our students with an MPA have gone on to these types of careers and these types of employers. Students with, you know, have studied international affairs have gone on to these types of things. And a prospective student might find their fit that way by saying, oh, that, you know, that type of career is, you know, something that I'd be interested in, and that could help guide them to a specific degree program.
That's a great suggestion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sharon.
No. I was just commenting on what David said. Go ahead, Marina.
Right. No, definitely. Whatever resonates with you is really kind of what will drive you towards whatever that intended career path or career goal or grad school goal is. And to, you know, to toot their horn, APSIA does a really great job of laying out so much good information for people as they're beginning the whole process of what am I thinking, you know, what should I be thinking about? It lays out everything from career outcomes, how to finance your education, what kinds of schools specialize in what, just all kinds of great external fellowships, how to finance, all kinds of good things that people need to think about when they're considering grad school or should be thinking about.
Absolutely. Now, Marina, you mentioned kind of like beginning with the end in mind. And so how would you, though, counsel our advisors if they have a student who's coming to them saying, should I go into these degree programs versus pursuing an MBA or a JD?
That's, again, it's a really good question. I feel, I think it really depends on a number of factors. Again, the benefits of grad school, no matter which grad school they choose, there are many benefits to attending grad school, but they really maybe ought to take a look at what is my intended career goal, and do I need specialized education for that area to, you know, to be successful in that intended career path. So it's like, do I really need it? Yes or no? And thinking about what kind of skill sets they need or what those intended, there's so many things that it's just not a one thing fits all for everybody, the way I think about it. So it's kind of like, why now? What's your motivating factor for attending grad school? What are you hoping to do? and kind of leading them through those questions that only they can really answer. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to go to law school, and we're like, okay, why? What is it that you're hoping to gain out of law school? Have you spoken to somebody, or maybe looked at the curricula? Do you really understand what goes into obtaining a degree in any discipline, and really understanding, are these the skill sets that you want to gain? But really, I think people should do their research for all the different programs that they're considering, even ones that they're not considering. But if they're all along the same lines, because certainly with a law degree, with a business degree, with an MPP, an MIA, or an international affairs degree, or a degree in public policy, you can kind of go into a career path. You can all wind up in the same office, if you will, and you might have a different set of skills that you are bringing to the table. So it really kind of depends on a variety of factors.
And in addition to that, there are schools, mine being one of them, that offer dual degree programs. We have students who it takes a lot of work and a lot of ambition, and frankly, could take a lot of money, but they wind up with a public policy degree and a law degree, and an MBA and a Master of Public Health, et cetera. So we have a lot of students who attend our school for the public policy degree, and then one of those other fields, and wind up with 2 graduate degrees, which can really broaden their professional opportunities.
David,
yeah, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. I wanted to do a follow-up question to what David was saying. Do you find that there's a strong financial benefit to students if they do that dual degree program, as opposed to taking one over another?
I mean, there certainly can be. I mean, we have students who go into very lucrative positions, in the public or private sectors, or nonprofit. That the extra degree of specialization, by also having an MBA or a law degree or a public health degree, can help make them real leaders in their field, because those degrees are important enough. Then you add the public administration or international affairs angle to it, and that can make someone a very highly qualified leader in a number of fields.
Thank you. Marina, I cut you off earlier. What were you hoping to say?
I'm the worst interrupter. I apologize for that. But really, it's a matter of like, what is your hopeful your return on investment? What is it that you're hoping to gain from this? Do you want the pressure of grad school? Are you going to earn a higher salary? Do you really need this degree? These are all practical questions that you want to ask yourself. So will you have more opportunities? So again, I want to say yes, in most cases that you will, but again, really having done your own research and that self-reflection, I think, is super key into helping you make the right choice in terms of which advanced degree you are going to earn. And of course, timing is now the right time. Maybe you work for several more years, gain some more perspective, and then you not all of a sudden, through the course of time, decide that this is the stronger path for you to take in terms of achieving life goals.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned earlier, alluding a bit of an allusion to our upcoming question. The question is like, what impact or role does graduate school actually have in professional success for a particular student? Could you both speak to that particular topic in terms of what you've seen in your experience?
Well,
David, would you?
Oh, yeah, okay, sure. The number of jobs in our economy that require an advanced degree is at an all-time high, and most feel that it is only going to increase. We have a lot of jobs that perhaps once upon a time, you could have a pretty good career doing that job with just a bachelor's degree, but now they want someone with an advanced degree. So the demand among employers for people with advanced degrees has never been higher and is only expected to grow.
Marina, would you like to add something?
I was just going to say, for sure, it gives you that competitive advantage. It gives you a chance normally in grad school, a chance to develop your professional skills through internships and or jobs that you might have while you're, if you are working during your time in grad school. And expanding gives you an opportunity too to develop that professional network.
Now, this kind of speaks to a little bit of the question that Ivana put in the chat. What is your opinion, or what has been your experience in terms of advising students to go straight from undergrad to grad school versus giving them time to have work and professional experience before pursuing a graduate education?
I am all for people gaining professional experience if they allow themselves to do so. And I don't want to say the word if. I am always overjoyed when I have a student come to me, a prospective applicant, someone who's interested in this program, tell me that they are planning to gain a couple of years of experience before pursuing their degree. And that fills me with joy, because then I know that they will have some sort of basis on which they are making a very important decision to attend graduate school. There's also the practical side. So some programs do require years of work experience before you're even eligible to apply. So there's research that you have to do at the beginning to kind of prepare yourself to be even eligible to apply to a particular program, perhaps, or any program. But there is also that added benefit of having the work, if you have work experience, again, having a better understanding of where you are, where you're at, and what kind of skills you need to move forward.
A 22-year-old coming right out of their undergraduate studies is going to be in an applicant pool with people who have been in the field for 5, 6, 10 years. So if a younger applicant has already established a focus as to what they really want to do, that they might be able to put together a good application. Someone who's just starting to feel their way around said, well, what is this public policy field all about? And hasn't really gained any exposure to it, might be better off spending a few years testing the waters professionally before they dive in. And especially considering the cost, it can be very. I work at what might be the most expensive public policy school in the country. It's a big can be a big financial commitment, and you don't want to do that unless you really know that that's your path.
Speaking of financial commitments, what would you advise in terms of students preparing themselves to pay the costs of graduate school, especially if they follow the advice of these amazing advisors and they go out and they work for a couple of years, but now they have to make the choice between either continuing to work while in grad school or all of a sudden going from making a paycheck to having to pay for their education. So as they prepare to make this transition, what would you advise, or how would you have these advisors speak to their students?
Well, yes, they need to do their financial planning in advance. Don't wing it and just hope that everything's going to work out. Go in with a financial plan. Step one is look at schools' websites and find out, realistically what it's going to cost to attend the school. Do you want to leave the workforce and study full time? And maybe just waiting tables or tending bar or something to make a little extra cash, or do you want to keep working and do a degree like this part-time that might be a better option for some people? Does your employer have programs where they assist with tuition costs? We're all working with a generation that the words student loan debt are probably the ugliest words in the English language, and prospective students need to get a realistic picture of what a student loan burden might be, if they want to go back, especially if they're going to pursue a degree on a full-time basis, because that is likely to be a significant portion of their financing plan. Obviously, there are financial aid, scholarships, fellowships, grants available. Probably not as many as are available for undergraduates. None of your students are going to go on to grad school and receive Pell Grants, for instance. Those are not available to graduate students. If they're receiving grants from your state, those typically are not available for graduate students. So there may be scholarships and fellowships available from the school or from private external resources, but student loans may come into this, and a student needs to read up a bit on what that's going to entail as a longer term financial commitment. And I do see that Margaret asks about graduate assistantships. Yes, that's another way of potentially earning some money to fund your studies. There may well be teaching assistants, research assistantships, et cetera, available to students in this field.
Programs might offer those as a condition, or not a condition, but along with the offer of admission. But for UC San Diego, they're not offered along with an offer of admission, but about a third of our students do find work on campus in various types of academic appointments. Some of those academic appointments can actually reduce the cost of tuition by as much as 40%. So as students are thinking about how they are going to fund their education, working on campus is probably the best way to go if they plan to work during their time, because working on campus, we understand what the students are here for, what the priority is, rather than working for somebody off campus. We definitely can be more flexible with a student's work schedule, and generally speaking, they get paid a pretty competitive dollar amount, whether that's an hourly wage or more of a salary, depending on the kind of academic appointment. And like I said, there could be benefits to working on campus that help reduce tuition. For these types of programs, however, I would consider telling students that it's unlikely that they'll be able to hold down a full-time job while they're doing their full-time studies. It's going to be difficult to be able to. Most programs are held during the day, not all. Most classes are held during the day, not all. So again, they have to have a level of flexibility with regards to to juggle a full-time job and full-time course load during or hours. The times that the classes are taught definitely make it very tricky.
Can you speak a little bit to when a student is thinking, okay, how am I going to finance this education? They probably will automatically think admissions and financial aid office, but what are the other partners or offices on campus that they should be reaching out to like either find an assistantship or a scholarship or a fellowship?
I would, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Marina. Oh, okay. I would start with the offices of financial aid and admissions. That's probably the resource, the offices where most of those resources would live. But if not, they can direct you to, for instance, if there are assistantships that are, the hiring decisions are just made by the faculty, there may be some central office outside of those two offices that take care of those types of appointments. But I would start with the financial aid and admissions offices.
Marina, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to talk about seeking external fellowship opportunities. So doing your homework, and again, having a plan in advance. If there was ever a time to plan, even if you did no planning before, now's the time for you to start using your, put your adult pants on and start thinking about how you are actually going to, do the best job you can for yourself. And the best thing you can do is start researching those external fellowship opportunities. Which ones do you qualify for? What is the application timeline? If you start looking at these opportunities the year that you plan to apply, you're probably already too late. So you want to take a year or two in advance to kind of look at the landscape and see what is out there, see what you qualify for, and then start thinking about how you can prepare an application for those types of external fellowships, and give yourself the opportunity to already have funding in your back pocket that you can take to any of the schools that you plan to attend, and rely less on any sort of merit-based aid offers and all that. And those might come, of course, but you will not be guided by going to any school that offers you. There might be a better school for you in the end, or the person in the end that they are able to attend because they have those external fellowship opportunities. So again, seeking those out, and APSIA is a great place to seek those opportunities out. So I'm just going to keep driving people back to the APSIA website. We have them too, but again, if they're not yet committed to a particular program, that's a great place to start researching those opportunities. So external funding, will your employer pay for that? That's another benefit of having some work experience. Maybe your employer gives you a few $1,000s of money to go take some classes. I don't know. There's just lots of different ways. You have to be creative, but you also have to plan to see what else is out there for you. That's in terms of external fellowship.
Yeah,
our website, we have a link to APSIA's external fellowships on our website.
I see David and Marina are really trying to earn those checks from APSIA.
It's a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer. It's all right there for students. It's really just one-stop shopping in terms of finding out lots of great information. So to me, it doesn't answer all of your questions, but this is a good place to get started.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know that when I was a student thinking about graduate school options, I utilized the resources on the APSIA page. So I am right there with you. I also want to give a shout out as well to the Robertson Foundation for Government, the nonprofit I work for. They also offer external funding sources for graduate students at select universities that we partner with. There are lots of organizations that do these types of things. So I would definitely say help your students be able to research and look through what all of the potential options are, especially once they know which universities they're interested in.
If I may, one more thing. If people are really interested in these particular areas, that there are enrichment programs that they can look at while they're in undergrad status. So whether it's the Rangel or PPIA, they can start looking at those or becoming involved with those types of opportunities. They also, if people go through those programs, we typically provide them fee waivers and or give them some sort, for sure, a fee waiver, if nothing else, to apply to the schools to begin with. So that's a cost savings for students as they begin that application process.
My apologies, everyone. That was my phone going off and I wasn't on mute. Lesson learned. Speaking of, though, financing, David alluded earlier to the reality of loans. And so one piece that is pretty new, I would say, is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Can you speak a little bit to that, especially given we're talking about public administration, public policy, international affairs degrees?
Yeah, that's something that we want all students looking at public policy degrees to be well aware of. And I'll start off by making sure everyone understands public service loan forgiveness is not the issue that was just recently being addressed at the Supreme Court. This is not the same cancellation that some people are trying to stop that the Biden administration introduced. Public service loan forgiveness was signed into law in 2007. It's not there are no legal challenges to it, et cetera. So the program exists and it's working. What public service loan forgiveness is a program that when a student who has borrowed loans from the federal government has been working and repaying those loans and working in the public or nonprofit sectors. The public sectors can be federal, state, county, local, even tribal jobs, or in any kind of 501c3 and similar types of nonprofits. After 10 years or 120 monthly payments, which need not be consecutive monthly payments, the balance of the loan is forgiven. Many of our students here at Columbia in the School of International and Public Affairs have this as their primary professional goals. We have about 2/3 of our students who go on to careers in the public or nonprofit sectors. So this is a program that recognizes that in many cases the public and nonprofit sectors do not pay quite what the for-profit private sector pays, so as to not discourage people from pursuing those types of careers. And you see everyone from teachers to librarians to social workers to law enforcement and medical professionals in public hospitals and public defenders and all kinds of people in every field of government work and all kinds of nonprofits getting significant amounts of their student debt forgiven. And again, this is not what is currently being fought in front of the Supreme Court. So people do not have to be afraid that this is about to go away before it even starts, because it was signed into law about 16 years ago.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive. Now, one other piece I want to talk about, because we've been talking a lot about how do we finance the education, but some of these advisors, their students may be coming to them with just the question of how can I be a competitive candidate for grad school? So open to both of you, but Marina, would you like to take an initial stab at the question of what are grad schools really looking for when it comes to a competitive candidate?
Well, I think, again, the very first basic thing is do I even qualify for this program at this time? Do I have the prescribed years of work experience? Do I have the academic background that might be required? Some schools might require coursework in statistics or economics and maybe have 3 years of work experience as a requirement, as a minimum requirement for even applying. So doing your research on the schools and determining that you are indeed eligible for admission based on your academic and professional background. So once you've achieved that part, it's really a matter of and you've decided to apply to a particular program, it's making sure that you follow directions with regards to the application process and making sure that you meet the deadlines and all of that. It's really kind of that basic of a plan that you need to have to be considered for admission. Now, as David said, there are going to be some people that are coming to the program that have several years of experience, coming in. So it could be competitive. At GPS, for example, we have students that are coming in straight from undergrad. We have people that are coming in with 7 years or more of work experience. So it kind of runs the gamut. lot of websites do indicate maybe what the incoming class looks like with regards to data points like grade point average. Do I meet the minimum grade point average? Do I, how many years of work experience might I have, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots of different metrics that we use. And one thing you might do is do some research on or ask your students to take a look at the different websites and see what those requirements are, see how they stack up, how they compare, and if they have questions, to follow up with the admissions team of any of the schools to get maybe a little bit more insight on the application process.
Okay, I'm going to apologize in case I say anything repetitive, because for some reason my sound bottomed out while Marina was speaking. I'll just add briefly, when I read an application, one of the most important things to me is what the applicant is saying in their essay, their essays. I can get a lot out of how passionate they are about this field and how determined they are to serve in this type of capacity by what's in their essays. We get lots of people with great transcripts and glowing letters of recommendation, but I really want to know, beyond the academics and beyond finding good references, what the applicant can tell us about why they are choosing this career path and why they think this degree is a good fit for what they want to do. That to me is probably the most important part of the application.
Absolutely.
So on the essay piece, and this will be my last question before I go to those in the chat. So also please, for our audience members, please feel free to continue putting those questions in the chat. When it comes to the essay, you were talking about passion, having a clear vision for what they're hoping to use this degree for. Are there any other elements of the personal essay that you would have these advisors speak to their students on to ensure that they are successful?
I'm always about the from the angle of just following directions, in terms of that, just making sure that you are following the prompt, in terms of, again, just being successful in that very basic way. Make sure that you're following the prompt and give yourself time to write an essay that is authentic as it can be. Again, and follows the prompt for sure, giving yourself enough time to reflect and make sure that you're putting everything down on paper that you want to present to the admissions committee, that you can't address in other areas of the application itself. That's your time to let us know the why, or for an applicant to know why they have decided to apply to this school as much as they can, and how it applies to any other prompt that might be out there. But communicating the style, the way you present yourself, your writing, the applicant's writing, all of those things are taken into account. So using your best grammar, your concise writing, all those types of, we're looking at your application or your statement for so many different hints as to what kind of student you will be here in the class at GPS.
I would also suggest, and this is just my own opinion, but sometimes we see essays that are stylistically very similar to what a 17-year-old wrote when they were applying to undergraduate school, and it's not what we're looking for. Don't get clever and creative. We don't necessarily want to hear about that your grandma was a great inspiration to you. This is now getting up to the professional level. I sometimes read an application where an essay where I think that this would be great from a teenager who wants to be a freshman. But this is not the same mindset. So I would explain to prospective applicants that it's not the same thing. They're going into a different phase of their lives and their education. And we're not looking for something all clever and flowery, no matter how well it's written. You're moving to a different stage and a different level now.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That was one thing I was wondering if either of you would touch on. But thank you for mentioning that, David. So
well, I think that really helps to differentiate between a person who doesn't have much professional background, or, you know, versus a person who is coming to the program that really understands how this degree can move them forward.
Absolutely. So looking in the chat, I see a couple of follow-up questions. So going back to the public service loan forgiveness, I saw Anita asked, is this only for graduate school debt or also undergrad?
It's for both.
Thank you. I'm seeing Winnie is asking about location. So since you guys are in such diverse locations for your graduate offices, can you talk about how that should or could influence a student's decision?
Well, we're right in the middle of New York, and I mean, New Yorkers will tell you that we're the absolute center of everything in the world, and you can agree or disagree, and we can debate that all day. But obviously, there are certain cities and regions where there are issues that come to the forefront. We have a lot of students who come here because they would like to work at the United Nations, and you can't do that anywhere else. There are public policy schools in Washington, D.C., and there's the obvious, attraction there if someone is primarily interested in federal government work. And a number of different types of businesses, industries, cultures, throughout the country that the location might be very important, and sometimes it is very driven by specifically what the student is interested in doing. We have some very strong programs in New York here, but I'm sure that we have some students that we admit who would rather be in California or in Washington, D.C. because of the things that are more located there.
I think when a person decides on a program or programs that they will apply to, I'm really hoping that they're making their choice. They're setting their list of priorities for certain. When they're choosing a school, I hope that they're looking at it for curriculum. Some students will tell us with joy that they're planning on, or they want to be here because they really want that West Coast, or they want the location, the locale. At UC San Diego School of Global Policy and Strategy is located right on the water, if you will, like a mile away from the water. Is that a great reason to come here? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that students are coming here because they want to get some sort of rigorous academic quantitative training. They're here to focus on issues that we specialize in, that our faculty are known for, not just here in San Diego, but in DC and or around the world. We've got great faculty, again, who specialize, but so does every other school. Every school has different specializations in some of the areas that we focus in on. Those are the reasons, along with the core curriculum, that you might choose to come to UC San Diego. There's no way that we're going to ever be able to compete with a Columbia and or schools in DC with regards to that part of the location, but we offer some really compelling reasons for students to come to this school.
Could you comment a little bit when it comes to location and how that might impact those students financially? It's like when they're thinking about the number of potential fellowships that might be available, or even just the cost of living. Should that be a factor when they're thinking about graduate school?
Well, cost, certainly has to be part, a major part of the planning when looking at grad schools. I don't know that fellowships are more plentiful or available in different locations. There's certainly regional cost of living differences. New York is one of the most expensive parts of the country to live in. There's no way to sugarcoat that. Fortunately, a lot of our students seem comfortable finding roommates, to hold down costs. And you have to think about that. We tell students, live like a student for a few years so you don't have to live like a student, after you graduate. But that's, it's certainly something that has to be thought about. But of course, many major universities are in major cities. So, whether you're in, New York or San Diego or San Francisco or Washington or Chicago, they're not low cost areas to live. So do your homework, but and be conscious of that, certainly.
I'll make a plug for schools that are maybe off the giant, the large city grid. We have a colleague in College Station, Texas, who offers very generous sorts of scholarships for students that attend that program. So if cost is a factor, and it should be, realistically, it should be part of their consideration, but they should look at different programs no matter what, if they are looking for certain specializations, they should definitely look at all those schools, because sometimes that can be the best place for a student to be, and again, help them leave without as much debt as possible. Hopefully they can be debt free when they leave, but that seems unrealistic, and is unrealistic, I think. But again, giving all schools due consideration, I think, is the best thing they can do for themselves, and being open to the possibility of being in different or giving different cities a look is really what they should do. It will be to their benefit.
A friendly reminder that you are welcome to drop questions into the chat. And you're also welcome just to raise your hand and come off mute if you would like as well, if you have any questions for our panelists. Seeing none currently, I'm going to ask Marina to talk a little bit more about the different parts of the curriculum when you're thinking about an MPP versus MIA versus MPA degree. What are some noteworthy differences in terms of the curriculum between those three degrees?
That's a good question. I would say for UC San Diego, taking into consideration UC San Diego's curricula for the MIA and the MPP, which is the Master of International Affairs and the Master of Public Policy degree, the first year of the program itself is very quantitative in nature. The MIA is more interdisciplinary because international affairs is more, takes our international affairs degree, is rigorously, quantitatively rigorous, but it is more interdisciplinary, looking at econ, business, and a little bit of political science, taking a look from all these different disciplines. The MPP policy is definitely more rigorous, focusing more on public policy and building those analytical skill sets, quantitative skill sets that you will need to pursue that type of career path. The types of specializations, I think, also vary from school to school. So again, as people are thinking about what is my career path, what is my intended career path, or what is my specialization, those are the things they should kind of be considering before they apply to different programs, so they have a good understanding of what they will focus in on in year 2 of the program at GPS. So again, if they're looking at public policy, are they looking at energy or sustainability issues? Are they looking at social issues? Are they looking at what is it they're looking for? If they're looking at just to build those quantitative skill sets so they can be great in that public service arena, or are they looking to build their skill set to maybe move into social policy? Again, it just all depends on those specializations And there is some overlap between the two at the School of Global Policy and Strategy, but again, at all the different schools, they really need to take a look and or determine what is my intended career path and what schools offer these types of programs that focus in, and then from there they can kind of compare and decide what school is best for them. But each school does things differently within the APSIA consortium. Some schools are more quantitative in nature. Many don't have that quantitative aspect to the program or as rigorous. So it really depends on a person and what skill set they're trying to build. Again, it kind of goes all the way back to the beginning. What kind of skill set are you hoping to build? What do you have to begin with? What are you hoping to obtain during this time?
You mentioned the robustness of the quantitative program at GPS, along with some other schools where that is just far more intense. I'm having flashbacks when I had to take quantitative classes at San Diego. But can you talk about the pros and cons of that? Obviously, like, it depends on the career that they're trying to go into, but in today's increasingly integrated and STEM influenced market, should these students really be looking for more quant heavy graduate degree programs?
We think so. Again, I can't, there are people that apply to this program and then they're in shock that we have a quantitative, like bend to our program. But I certainly feel the way the faculty members do, and I think our colleagues at Columbia are kind of the same way. We take a quantitative approach to solving issues of the day, and that is, I think, the way that people will go. That's the way things are going. It hasn't decreased during my time here. It has only increased. So I think that if students want to be competitive out the gate from graduation, having those kind of skill sets are going to help them be a little bit higher on that competitive scale when they depart, and they'll be ready to hit the ground running. They'll have a robust skill set that they can use, a toolkit, and they can use that in a variety of ways. Makes them pretty nimble.
Yeah, and at Columbia, that even applies to students whose concentrations or specializations are things like, human rights or gender issues. They still have to take those economics courses.
Awesome. I'm going to do a final call, see if there is anyone who has a burning question they would like answered. All right, going once, going twice. All right, I want to close it up with this final question, and then we'll do some housekeeping before we conclude the event for the day. Given your programs, and they're highly focused on, public service and international affairs, if you can just speak to these advisors about, essentially your sales pitch, why would their students want to consider even a degree in these particular fields of public policy, public administration, and international affairs? What are some of the benefits, in your opinion, and some of the benefits you've seen the students in your programs really reap from making that decision?
Well, I'm probably one of the few baby boomers on this call, and yeah, my generation kind of screwed a lot of things up, and we need younger people now coming in to fix a lot of things. The students I've had the pleasure of working with for the last nearly 12 years now are some of the most passionate, driven people I've ever worked with in my nearly 40 years in higher ed. They are coming here because they want to change the world. The world needs a lot of changing, and we need good, well-qualified, passionate people to do that. And that, to me, is the motivating factor behind why someone wants to pursue a degree like this. There's plenty of work to be done.
I would agree. This program is for those, and I think that's what keeps me here. I love meeting students that want to affect positive change, and it can be at the local it could be at any level. So it's up to them. I can't tell them what their career path should be, but if they are looking to affect positive change locally, at the state level, at the national level, or even abroad, or gain an understanding of the world around them in many different ways, and be willing or wanting to maybe work abroad, then this could be the right program for them to attend.
I love it. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here. And I want to especially thank David and Marina for their insights, and for all of the recommendations that they offered. I want to call us to a couple housekeeping items. I believe that one of the APSIA staff members is going to be putting up a evaluation poll. If you could please complete that. Shouldn't take that much of your time, and it's going to really help APSIA further fine-tune these PISA workshops and seminars. And then, of course, I believe Carmen mentioned at the top, but there's also a friendly reminder for the Thursday session on advising on applications and empowering students to tell their story, which I believe is at 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So make sure that you save the date for that and mark your calendars to join us for that particular upcoming event. Yep, there you go. Put it already in the chat. Well, with that, thank you, everyone, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.